everybody. Welcome to Radical Kitchen. My name's Emel. I'm projects curator here at the Serpentine.
I'm Lucia, another curator here at the Serpentine.
And the Radical Kitchen series happens in summer in the pavilion, and it's a series of talks, picnics, workshops, all kinds of different events around food where we digest ideas as well as digesting the food together. And this year we're responding to this incredible pavilion that we're all sitting in today, designed by Frida Escobedo. And the lines of this structure actually point to the Prime Meridian line in Greenwich. And so we've based all this series of Radical Kitchen this summer around the question of empire and thinking about the materials and the ingredients that shaped the map of empire, but also shaped our ideas of value, what happens when we start to place value or create an economy around an ingredient, what happens to the landscapes, how have they transformed over the last few centuries. And so we're really excited to have clay as this week's Radical Kitchen ingredient.
And actually, you just reminded me, and this beautiful display here that Francesca has prepared reminded me something that Frida herself said, which is, let's remind ourselves there's two architectures around the use of materials for a building, and that architecture makes two marks on the landscape. One is the building that is made, and the other one is the place where the material that it comes from has had that material extracted. And so there couldn't be a more sort of connected element to this than clay, and we're really thrilled to be working with Francesca Sarti from the design studio Arabeschi di Latte, which is a design studio that has been primarily concerned with food, its histories, its politics, its stories, and its design. Francesca herself is an architect, and she set up Arabeschi di Latte in Italy in 2001, and they've been active in the UK since 2013. So I think without further ado, just a quick word of thank you to ASOP for making the Radical Kitchen series possible. And last but definitely not least, because it is through her that the introduction to Francesca and to Arabeschi di Latte was made, Nicoletta Fiorucci, who has been an advisor on an enormous number of our programs here at the Serpentine. She's passionate about food. She's passionate about questions surrounding food and how food really impacts and exists in many, many, many other parts of our lives. It is through her advice and collaboration that we've been thinking through this year's Radical Kitchen program. And thanks to her that we are lucky to have you today. So thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Francesca Sarti, as I said. So, as I say, Arabeschi di Latte is a design studio working with food. I would say I like this expression, crossing the boundaries between food, design, and sometimes even art practices. And as a studio, I always try to work a lot on interaction, because I think food, in a way, is what brings people together. Immediately create connections among friends, but also among strangers. So I've always been very fascinated by that side of the food, the social side of the food, and of course the conviviality that comes out of it. And so when we've been asked to participate in these sessions, I wanted to try to find a way to make it be interactive, even if it's not like a proper workshop, it's more like a talk. But I wanted to keep this interactive side. And that's why, instead of having images or using internet, we decided to have physical material here in order to help me to remind you of what I have to say, but also for you to see the objects that are part of these little stories, this collection of stories around clay, such a beautiful element. And and to make more tangible and then also edible, because we're gonna end this session with a few bites and little things, I would say muddy things to taste. So, since the microphone is quite short, we also have Chris. They're gonna assist me, and always we're gonna try to point out what I'm talking about. And then, of course, feel free to move, go and touch the things, try, see, read it. And another things I would like to say is that please feel free to tell your stories. If during the conversation comes up nice stories around clay that we haven't included in this presentation, please feel free to stop me and say, oh, you know about that, because I think it will be more interactive and more fun instead of just listening to me. When we decided which element we wanted to talk about, at the beginning we wanted to talk about water, but then we moved to clay, and I'm so happy we did it, because I have realized that it's perfect. It really fits a lot of elements that are part of the Arabeschi di Latte research. First of all, it's a bit dirty. So I've always liked people to get their hands dirty. For who knows some of our project, one of the, probably the first in London was a gnocchi bar, where people could learn how to make gnocchi and prepare their own gnocchi. So they were part of the performance itself, and they, the bar, they had to prepare their own gnocchi. And this interactive kind of cafe, they were quite popular, and they became a sort of Arabeschi di Latte signature. So I like to make people's hands dirty, and clay is the perfect one. Then there is also this primordial feeling around clay, because man has eaten earth, has eaten clay, like since millennium. It's like 2,000 years ago, they were already eating clay. So it's something that is really connected with this instinctive feeling of eating something that comes from the soil. And then also compared to the other elements that has been presented during the Radical Kitchen section, I was happy to discover that as most of the issues around clay are positive. So I think this positive touch is also part of the Arabeschi di Latte approach to design and creativity. And because actually what does mainly clay does is cleaning, detoxing, because it has these strong binding properties, so it traps bad substances from heavy metals to radioactive materials. So I think we have seen with other materials like gold or like mercury, a lot of toxic implications in their extraction or production, while clay is most of the time used to clean this toxic part. And this has been done in a very DIY way, and also in more industrial production. So also this double value of the material, like something very everyday life, something that is very reachable, something that is not difficult to extract. You can make your own clay. You can just go to for example, to the Serpentine pond, and you can take from their soil and then start preparing your own clay. But at the same time, there is also an industrial extraction of it that, of course, can allow to produce all the most of the filter to clean even the fields or water supply. So if you start investigating, you see that almost everywhere there is a bit of clay, because of this amazing property of cleansing and cleaning. So starting with some of these props that we have collected there, I'm going to start with table number 2. And this is about eating earth. There is the one that Chris is holding is our version of mud cookies. And mud cookies are used especially in Haiti, where there's like a big production of it, to fight hunger. But they're also seen as containing some nutritive properties. That is not like scientifically proved yet, even if eating clay is something very old. there's still a lot of research and obscure results about if it has nutritional properties or not. Beyond that, in Haiti, they regularly produce these mud cookies, and they're called bonbon la, because la in Haitian language means ground, soil, or land. And they're selling it for, I think, $2, like quite big quantities of them, and they are used instead of other form of food. So in this case, let's say the eating clay, I was answering to an emergency more than just a healthy desire that is more spreading nowadays. But then there is also a more primordial connection with clay, and is even a disorder. It's called pica. Pica is generally people who want. It is a disorder where people wants to eat not edible material like chalk and like clay, because clay is like they are minimal mineral particles of the soil, so it's the mineral side of it. They are the clays are actually very small particles. So there is a disorder, but it's like it's very spread. It's like in the book Craving Earth, if you want to show it, and really if you are curious about eating clay, I really recommend to read this book. And there is a map, I think is where you have, there is a map showing all the number of people eating clay all around the world, and it's quite impressive, the number of people who does it. And in fact, if you start researching online, there are a lot of websites where you can buy different variety of clays from different parts of the world. For example, I found one that is huge in Russia, like providing a lot of clays from different regions of Russia. Or another one from Australia with different varieties. And each clay has different properties, different mineral composition. So it's a disorder, but in a way it's not like a little number of people who has it. So it's in the book, it's quite interesting to see how the author, wanted to explore the reason behind this eating disorder. So I thought it was quite attractive to see how is a kind of millennial eating disorder. No, eating disorder for us that we work with food is like they are part of the nowadays pattern. They are very important. I think in a way also for me it started as an obsession and food, and I was obsessed with food, and probably I found myself interested in it because of that obsession. But yeah, it's very interesting the way she is scientifically researched. She has read a lot of researches of different professors from especially the American university, that they have tried to find the reason behind that. But the main reason in the end is this cleaning and this detoxing power that clay has. So even if others, they have more holistic and religious reason behind that, but still most of the time is because clay is seen as something that can clean your organism. So nowadays this has become quite a healthy trend. So if you start researching about the new trend in food, clay is one of that, and especially you can have it with water. So you can drink water with clay, and a lot of people does it regularly every day. And I think it's quite funny. We have kept the packaging of the clay we have ordered because since it's not completely legal to eat clay, all these websites, they send you like all the package without any information, without saying, oh, this is the expiry date or anything. And normally they say it's like for beauty mask, because that is a legal use. But apparently, there is a like sort of black market of clay for people who likes to to eat it. So it was very nice to discover also that kind of addictive part of the clay. We also had some tasting. Unfortunately, we can't have a tasting here. But hopefully one day we're going to organize a clay tasting. So that was the first table. And of course there is a lot of things to say around it because, yes?
Clay just dried by the air and you're eating?
Yes, it's dried by the sun. Yeah, but you can also use kiln to to make the process of drying faster. In fact, if you think about industrial production, of course, they will not like just... Yeah, because people who has the geophagy, that is like this disorder, they're also very picky about which clay they want to eat. And it doesn't have to be too wet, because if it's wet, it's more like the humus of the soil. And most of the time, it means that it has also animals. Exactly. So it's very important, and there is people like even traveling quite far to source their own clay. That's why I say there is a very interesting market behind the clay eating. But in the book, you can really find everything. It's like I was doing this research, and when I discovered the book, I said, oh, that's really very exhaustive, and it's very helpful. So we can also use clay for, I mentioned water. And that also brings me to talk to probably the part that we have been researching more, that is the connection with water, especially to create vessels for water. Because we are so used to see water in plastic bottles. We also have here, I think, yeah, hidden, luckily. And it was not like that till 50 years ago. So a few years ago, we did at Selfridges a water bar, and the idea of the water bar was to find a new rituals to avoid the use of plastic bottles. So I think it's very good at the moment in town. They are building a lot of drinking fountain. So it's like in the program of the measure to build a lot of drinking fountain. Because the problem is that the plastic has become the main vessel for water, but we can find alternative and go back to a situation that was not not such a long time ago. So we are talking about table number 3, and this is a great example of alternative vessel that has been traditionally used in India since centuries, and it's called bar. And there are these small cups made out of clay, and are used to serve tea or other drinks in every street of India till a few years ago. Now, unfortunately, also in India, the plastic is the use of plastic is growing. But in the past, in every street of India, you only find bar. And there is a huge production of them. And the great thing of bar, that are made with clay, so very local, not expensive materials. And moreover, after you have used it, you can throw away and remake it. So you break it, and then they powder the clay, and they start again the production. So I think such a simple, traditional way of making cups maybe can inspire us for redefining and redesigning the way we drink water. So we have used this cup for some drinking. For some water tasting. And this one, if you want, you can also try. It's after, feel free to try. Just of course they could affect a bit the taste of water, but the idea is that since they are disposable, the idea is just you use it and then you dispose. So they will not absorb the soap, or so it's not reusable. But maybe starting from that, we can create new vessels, because it really doesn't make a point to have water in plastic bottles, single-use plastic bottles, because that's the point. No, is the single-use the real problem? So from a drinking vessel to a drinking filter. This water filter is one of the most popular in countries where we can't have drinkable water. And the fact that drinkable water is becoming more and more rare. So now in London, you can just buy bottled water, but I think we need to change our approach, because it might be that soon we're going to have to go back in purifying our water by ourselves. But apart from that, I think it's very interesting to see this filter, and because it's a very affordable one, and it's made with actually a filter made of three materials: is clay, sawdust, and colloidal silver. So the combination of these three materials create this filtering part, where the water, not drinkable water, like, I don't know, water from a pond or even rainwater, can pass through. And thanks to the property, I make it simple. Of course, the physics process behind it is a bit more complicated on the way I tell you. But I'm not a scientist, so I try to make the conversation easy. It's like it's filtering the water, and all the particles, the toxic particles, are trapped in the clay, and so the water that goes in this part, that in this case is made of plastic. There are some made of ceramic as well. Is drinkable water. But the fact that the reason why I like this filter is that it's very simple. Is really based on a very simple process, and that's why it's been very popular. And there are more and more suppliers trying to produce for the countries where drinkable water is not available. And I think this is also an interesting connection with clay in general. It's like it's an available material. So I think it's interesting to see how we can use a simple process, maybe to imagine something bigger. So I think this is very simple, and it's also low cost, so it's affordable. And this allows a lot of these of the people living in that country to afford one. And that's, I think, is quite important. So this one specifically is one from EcoFilter. Unfortunately, one part didn't arrive from the US, but I think more or less it looks like that one is properly installed. So the principle is super simple. If you want, there are also some images of others. And inside you're going to see there is this treatment with the colloidal silver. So these are the shape of the terracotta one, the filtering part. That's the actual filtering part. This is just a container, actually. And no, it's not because it's a colloidal silver, so it's not expensive. I don't remember the price of it in terms of production, but for example, the brand EcoFilter, they have started production, and they start selling it instead of giving it for free through ONG, because they have realized that it was enough affordable for people to buy, and in that way they didn't have to wait to have the resources to have people get one of them. So I honestly, I don't remember the price, but it's quite cheap. And it's quite easy to make. So most of these companies that are producing them, they have organized a local production. So in addition of producing a good filter, they're also giving work, jobs to many people on site. Sorry? Yes. Yes, it's very durable. Also, I think it has probably a limit of time, but in general, another feature of clay that make it not only affordable but also durable, because the process works for a long time. For example, they are using now also for insects. Because if you cover your skin with clay, yes, and this is, there are researches around it, but probably they start using on a larger base, because it's quite cheap to make it, and durable, and without counter effects like toxic ingredients. And there's another water filter I think we have in table number 4 is this disc, the muddy disc, and they are made of clay infused with silver or copper. And this is a research, but now they started production. And using that disc, you can clean 20 liters of water in a quite fast time. So there are a lot of research, and most of it, they are based on clay. So that's why I think it's, this connection with water is quite powerful. It's like it's an interesting bond between water and clay. In fact, we also have another DIY filter. That's one we made our own, and is made basically with sawdust and clay. Then you need a kiln to cook it and make it stronger. But even with that filter, you can find a lot of tutorial online, and it's quite interesting to see also how people likes to recover this handmade process for it. But it's really simple, and when you are in I don't know, in difficulties, you can make it very easily. So now we talk about eating clay. We talk about the relationship with water and the filtering one. About water, sorry, I was forgetting this. This is an amphora. Again, this it goes back to the idea of the vessels. Terracotta vessels for water is like are been existing for ages, and is also the perfect material because it has the perfect thermic feature, so it keeps the water cold. And this one is like is also very porous, so it says to trap the toxic particles. But this is just one of the many. I just have to introduce that. Then we're gonna see, well, like cooking with clay, and then I think we're gonna also taste that. Probably I'm forgetting something.
Bricks maybe.
Yes. So before going to eating with clay, that's the last part, I just want to mention another important role of clay. Probably because I'm an architect, even if I've been working with food for a long time, but I was trained as an architect, and Arabeschi di Latte was founded while I was studying architecture. Clay is also a very cheap material for making bricks. Even London, all the Georgian London was made with clay from the Thames. That was not fertile, was not very useful for many other things, but it was perfect for making bricks. So if you look at Georgian London, you're going to see all the clay bricks with all the different shades of color, because, of course, the composition was depending from the soil next to the Thames. But less probably romantic story. In Gaza, they are producing bricks using clay because, again, it's available and cost effective, and they the clay comes from Egypt through smuggling, and then they produce these very simple bricks made of clay and a bit of hay to make it more resistant. And so in this way, they are able to rebuild houses, even if the availability of building materials in Gaza is very critical. So that was just a little mention of the architectural building side of clay. So we go back to the food side and the idea of eating with clay. Can I? So what we have here, a few interesting stories. One is like that in even the Maya, they used to use clay for keep the food warm. So not only for cooking, but for keep the food warm. So they had these cooking bowls that Chris is going to show you, were found with little particles of edible ingredients on top. And the research says that probably they were used to keep the food warm. So it's quite interesting how the use of clay was deeply connected also with the let's say with the cooking process itself. And for example, again in Central America, they use clay to cook with potatoes, because potatoes has some toxic part. And so the idea of eating them with clay, even these were just wrapped with clay, but some can be served with a clay sauce. I think we have a picture for the clay sauce there. And while potato has these toxic ingredients, and if you serve with this clay sauce, it absorbed the toxic substance. So again, this is not confirmed, but apparently they have used because of that, and that's probably also what saved them from hunger, because potatoes were very important in the Central America diet. So that was perfect for, like, say, limiting the toxic part of it. Then an interesting story from China. I don't know if you have ever heard of the 100 years egg, or the millennium egg. And this egg is actually a gone mad egg. Is under is put under the soil in a mud clay soil, and is the substance the outside of the egg goes inside, and the egg, I make it simple, but the egg is like becomes very tasty. It's like really a proper delicacy. I don't know if you have a try, but if you go in Chinatown, I think you can still buy also in London. But it's quite interesting to see in this case the deep relation with the earth. So not only eating it, but also it is transmitting substance to the porous shell of the egg and transforming it in something that is not cooked, is only put in the soil for 1 month. And so I've always been very fascinated by 100 years egg, also with this strong relation with time. And still talking about food and mud, I would like to have, no, I don't have here, but that's fine. My bag is here? No. Yes, she has. Sorry. Okay. We're going to taste soon the apple. I just want to show you this little video. It was made during a workshop we did in Bois Boucher. Le Domaine de Bois Boucher is a very interesting site in north of France. where every year designers are invited to run workshops. And I've run for 2 years. And 3 years ago, we did this workshop, was called Hungry Copy, and we have used nature to produce the food. And that's the first time that we have prepared the apple in clay. In that case, the clay was the mud from the lake of this Bois Boucher. It's like an amazing garden with a castle. And since the lake composition was said to be drinkable, the water of the lake, we have used the mud and we have cooked this apple inside. And that's such a simple technique. It works very well because the clay creates a sort of how to say, like a trap, like it's not the right word. It closed the apple inside this film, and so the water of the apple with the fire and the heat that comes from the clay start evaporating. So in a way, the apple inside is actually steamed. So baking in clay make the apple steam. I want to show you the video. Of course, it's small, so maybe I'm going to put next to the apple and people can have a look if they are interested. And I think now, for me, is enough. I haven't checked the time, so it might be too short or too long, I don't know. But I think right timing is what you feel. So, and it's actually the magic moments, what I like to call it. So now you can taste this apple baked in clay, prepared by Canteen. And yeah, and then if you want, you can also watch the video, touch all the props, drink the water with the bar cups from India, and enjoy. Thank you.